Hey Matt, how are you doing today?
Well, yesterday wasn't the best day, so I'm a bit deflated and I'm tired from my long run today as I prep for my marathon. But I'm sure you're going to raise my spirits today, right?
Yeah, we'll start and and try to. I guess the question is, when is your marathon? We got to know that first.
So that's in April. I'm running Manchester Marathon.
Okay.
Do you want me to? Am I allowed to talk about this, or do you not want me
Yeah,
to?
go
Is
for
it
it.
not interesting, or is it interesting?
Go for
So
it.
I wasn't a runner. I wasn't much of a runner. I played a lot of football and stuff when I was younger, but I wasn't much of a runner. But my other half, Kath, was a runner. She's done a couple of marathons already. So her and her dad, believe it or not, had signed up already, and some of their friends to do Manchester Marathon. And I thought I would just be the good other half and just do some local park runs, as we call them. So little five, do that to support her rather than her running on her own. And that was in April last year. And that quickly became me signing up to marathons. So within the space of 12 months, I'll have gone from basically nothing to doing park runs, 10Ks, and obviously, fingers crossed, I'll complete this marathon. It coincided, sadly, with my mum being diagnosed with cancer. So I'm trying to, and Kath is raising money for Your Space, the autism charity that Paul Mullin sort of supports. So,
Definitely.
so that's the driving factor at the moment. When I'm struggling and you've hit the wall, I'm thinking about, well, my mum's just gone through sort of cancer treatment, radiotherapy. That was much worse than not being able to run another couple of miles. Just get on with it, lad. So if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Those are two good charities. We'll go ahead and link those in if you want to highlight. You talked about Your Space, and then what was the other cancer research one?
It's a very big one in the UK called Cancer Research. It's like one of the main
Oh,
cancer
okay.
research charities. I've got posts on my Twitter timeline. Maybe you can retweet it or reference it
Yeah,
or something if people have got. Listen, I understand money is certainly for us. Money is tight, but if people have got a few pennies and they feel like donating, that would be great because I'm going from nothing to 26 miles. That's if that'll earn a few pennies, I'm sure. That's
yeah.
worth a few pennies just to keep me in agony, if nothing else.
Don't appeal to the heartstrings of anybody. You're like, look, I know you're
No,
all
go for the,
sadists.
yeah,
So,
that's what they want. It's fine. That's okay. That's all right. That's okay.
well, that is the way we do a full range of emotions here. We've brought on Matt from Racecourse Ramble. You all that are in the Wrexham world probably already know about him. Listen to his pod, watch the interviews and live streams on YouTube. We'll link in all that naturey goodness inside the description. So anybody that's following along here, if you don't know about Matt, go ahead and follow his links. If you do have those means, like he said, for the charities, then do what you can. If all you can do is a retweet, then retweet something for a
Perfect.
good cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Every little helps, doesn't it? So that's perfect.
well, Matt, you are obviously a longer term Wrexham fan than I am myself, probably more than a lot of the viewers that are tuning in, this being a lot of new viewers get some of their Wrexham 101 from here. What are things that people should know about you, about Matt?
Oh, Matt's very boring. I'm not sure. There's not much. I don't think there's really much that it's. Listen, average fan. Nothing, not done more or less than anybody else. But I ended up podcasting because I've got an interest in technology. I've worked in technology a long time, and I love podcasts. Listen to podcasts for years, and listen to obviously the Fearless Boys doing their podcast, and Nathan and Rich doing Rob Ryan Red, and just thought to myself, I would love to do something myself. And that's where it was born from. The first year of the takeover, obviously, we that coincided with the story, yeah, the Rob and Ryan story, yeah. So obviously, just thought, oh, this is great. Something, this is perfect story to tell. And I like talking about football. I talk about football all day and tactics and all the boring stuff that most people aren't interested in. I've been today, I've had messages, people we've been talking about yesterday and what can we do and what, because that's a hot topic at the moment if you're online after yesterday. So just started doing the podcast from there. And like all of them, they grow, and some people love it, some people hate it. It's fine, it's great. Everybody's got different opinions, haven't they? Everybody's got a show that's different for everybody. I think it's interesting watching the reaction to newer fans online. Listen, everybody should be welcome. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter where you're from, how new you are. We're all supporting the same thing here, aren't we? So that's what excites me now. And we just try, and I don't push my podcast a lot. If you watch my videos, we don't, if I was doing it right by YouTube, we would be asking for follows and subscribers and stuff, but we don't. It's quite organic. We just try, it's therapy for me. The very first, it's to sort of get it going. And I was just chatting on my own, and I basically said, listen, this is therapy for me, talking about it. You get it out your system, don't you?
Yeah.
Remember, at that point, Wrexham were not, we were just in the transition, so we weren't this winning machine that we later became. It's therapy for me. That's all it's designed to be. It's not meant to be clever. It's not meant to be polished and really shiny. It's meant to be like a pub-style conversation is how I would describe it, and put it out. And if people want to listen to it, that's great. If they don't, totally get that. I understand, the gold standard for me is still the Fearless Boys. No disrespect, Ram, to you and your, obviously. But, that's the longest, really long established one. So that's why I'm saying that. I think what Tim and the boys do is the gold standard for me, for Wrexham. But everybody should be welcome to have an opinion. Let's talk about it. Let's not shout at each other about it. And just because some people, doesn't mean that their voices shouldn't be heard. So it's great that you sort of serve that newer fan, if you like. That's brilliant, because obviously you're helping people to learn and get up to speed quicker.
Hopefully.
Really boring. No real clever stories. Just typical fan that decided, I'd like to chat about it. We'll record it. Let's see if people want to listen to it or if they don't.
Well, thank you so much, because that's absolutely awesome. Everybody does have their own perspective, and there's something about, like you said, there's a polished version of something that appeals to a certain number of people that are out there, and then there's the people out there that enjoy the laid-back dialogue, conversation, the pub style, without all the frills and bells and whistles, and it's like, here's just an authentic chunk of life. This is just a slice of life that you're looking at for a little bit of time. And there's outside of saying there's a market for everything, there's a demographic, and there's something that speaks to different types of people. And if you're trying to make something that speaks to everybody, you're obviously going to fail. But if it at least speaks to yourself, then that's all that matters. I
was going to say that it's interesting you saying that. I'm a big movie fanatic as well, right? That's my other sort of passion. And I watch a Canadian gentleman, actually, but he lives in America now, a guy called John Campier, who's does a lot of does a movie show basically every day. He talks about movie news. Right?
Okay.
But he's really open, and he talks about growing a YouTube channel and that type of thing. He's actually become really good friends with Ryan Gin and stuff, which he has on his show. Really interesting. But he talks about podcasting. He said, listen, if you do a podcast, just do it for yourself, because then it will be authentic and you'll enjoy doing it if it's what you want, and you'll do it for longer. And obviously the consistency then is what will help you grow if you want it to be something really big, rather than forcing it to be something that you think everybody wants. Just do whatever you want to do and just be organic with it. So that's why I say that's why there's loads of things I know I could do. As I said, when I'm on live streams, I don't really push you must follow us and all that. People want to do that because growing your channel is I don't chase the numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's great. It's just a nice little chat. We've got a few people who come on it with us who are great. Obviously, you spoke to a few of them the other night. So we have a few people come on it that are great, Richie and Alex, who I just found through the podcast, really. So you don't realise that I've made friends through.
That's awesome.
Some of them lived in the town, who I've seen knocking about at Wrexham games, but we would have had no real reason to connect. So that's that. Those are the things I like.
Yeah, if I can't get too philosophical or deep into it, but if you're looking at, okay, what makes that ball in life roll forward, it's just those interactions when you're making meaningful connections to people, making meaningful relationships or memories within your own life. I mean, what more could you ask for? And when you have like a hard day getting motivated, or like you were mentioning probably before we were recording, but when you're mentioning about running and having a day where you're struggling or finding the motivation to continue on a long run like marathon training, you need those things that are below that surface level of motivation. You need something that's a little bit deeper, that speaks to yourself. And I mean, I'm a big advocate within marathon training, or ultramarathon training is analogous to life, where you have your up and down struggles and you have your setbacks that you have to get through. So I think it's something universally everybody can relate to, and they could relate to you on the pod, relate to you as the marathon runner. And there's something else, I don't know if we can relate to you or not, but you got the Wrexham lager pillow in the background, so I assume you do consume some beers here and there. Okay.
Yeah, I've got. I'm not sure if I can't see that on my screen, but you can see it, so it must still be in there. It must just be the resolution of the screen. Yeah, that was actually a present for. It was actually a present for my other half. But anyway, go on.
Oh, okay, all right.
I pinched it because I needed something to fill the gap.
It works perfectly, and it ties the room together. It's the Big Lebowski rug. It is the thing that makes the feng shui. So, well, if not too much of a big beer drinker, what kind of foods would you consider like, these are my food that brings me home or brings me back to my childhood? Do you have any foods that do that for you?
Oh, so childhood would be so that's an interesting one. I think my mum did a really good. We would eat egg and chips, so fried egg and chips.
Okay,
right. So just a couple of fried egg and chips. That was a pretty classical sort of, growing up at school. Mum comes home, it's sort of beans on toast, or egg and chips is what you'd have for tea. So something like that, I would have said is the one that I go back as far, as far as I can remember when I was in sort of high school in those years. I'm trying to see now. I've changed now. Your taste develops, doesn't it?
It does.
Now I'm like last night after the game. We were feeling miserable. We went to the curry house and we had a curry, and I had a pint of Wrexham to try and cheer me up a little bit, which was the worst thing I should do, knowing I was going out running today. But if you can imagine, it was, I can't remember what time we got back to Wrexham. It must have been past 6-ish by the time the buses got back. So, wasn't in the mood for making tea, etc. So, and my 14-year-old loves chicken korma, so that was it. That's what we had to do. So, but my favourite food item or substance, if you like, is eggs. I can eat eggs in any which way. So if you can fry an egg, poach an egg, scrambled eggs is what I had this morning. Eggs on toast and stuff. Just give me an egg, and you can live forever.
So the fries on chips, is that a regular thing in the UK? Is that something just you did, or
no? That would have been you're going back to the late 80s, early 90s now. So that would have been pretty typical to have egg and chips. But nowadays you'll get it occasionally, but they'll put some sort of meat with it. So you might have it on top of a piece of gammon or a piece of ham with some nice chips. If you go to a good, nice pub, and have some nice food, they'll do a nice posh version of that. So a nice fried egg. I remember being in Spain once and having a fried egg in the middle of a pizza, and that was of course that was amazing to me because you could dip me pizza in the egg.
Yeah. I've never seen that either. So did they cook it with a hole in the center, or they just cut out the center?
No, I don't know, because you can't tell that, can you? You have to make the assumption afterwards. But there was a bit missing, and the egg was in it. So whether they did it before or after, don't know.
So calling back to young Maddie with the chips and eggs, is that? I'm assuming that's a early day thing, or is that at any time of the day?
Tea time thing. Really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What was your first introduction into Wrexham, or like how did that story start for you?
So obviously I was living in Wrexham, so I live in Wrexham. I haven't always lived in Wrexham. We've moved around. I've been abroad and stuff, but we were living in Wrexham. My stepdad was actually on the board of directors at Wrexham, and just one Saturday afternoon, he left. Well, early in the morning, he left for the ground, and he said, "If you want to come, I'll put some tickets in the window," as we used to call it. So where the club shop is now, they've actually got a window again now, but there used to just be this old little window is where you got your tickets from him. So he put some tickets there for us. So me and my mum went. This would have been in the... See, I'm 46 now. The memory's not what it used to be. So this is going back 30-something years. But we went, picked up the tickets, watched the game from the Wrexham Lager stand, the tech end of the Wrexham Lager stand.
Okay.
And yeah, that was it. Basically, from there, that was that. I think that might have been the first proper football match I'd been to.
Oh wow!
So that was it. Then I was hooked because it was, that was Wrexham. It was my hometown club sort of thing. So yeah, that was my introduction really. That and having a stepfather who was on the board, and you would kind of get some idea of what was going on behind the scenes.
Oh wow. Is it something where he kept the club separate from home life, or did that just naturally bleed over?
No, it definitely spilled over because he used to bring all sorts of, players, some of the staff, and some of the other other directors. In those days, you were very social. So no, we used to, There was many a time where I'd wake up where obviously they'd all been back and all been drinking, and the place was a mess, but I'd been asleep. But that's how it used to be.
Was there any games or players or anything that you could kind of point to and say, all right, this was the time where I went from casual to 100%, or was it just from day one?
No, see what you see. See, my team, my era was the Brian Flynn era. That was really when I was going all the time. I was in school and college. And so I think I would probably say that was really when I was properly invested, and I could attend games and sort of, we had that team had so many players in it. You'll hear people talk about it. You'll start to pick that up if you don't already. But the first players that really I was super invested in were a centre forward called Gary Bennett, a psycho. So Gary Bennett, who I got to meet at the Mice Gwyn not long ago for the first time ever, really.
Nice.
And a goalkeeper called Andy Marriott. Who does get a mention on Mark Howard's video today with Ryan Reynolds, actually. Which was quite interesting. I don't know, you might not have watched that yet.
I haven't seen it
It's
yet.
Yours,
No.
Mine Away podcast. He has Ryan on it, and he does mention Andy Marriott. But Andy Marriott was a goalkeeper, and he was just way above our level, really. And at the time when I was playing local football at the time, so I had a bit of a sort of connection with him. And in the summer, I got to train with him and one of the other goalkeepers for a couple of weeks, and that was really good. So and he was really nice, which was good to boot, because they say don't beat your heroes, don't they? They can't live up to how you've built them up. But both of those guys actually are exceptional. Gary Bennett, I ended up on his table at the Mice Gwyn when he was doing a speech. He was doing a speech before a match. I'd squeezed in at the last minute, and they'd put me and Kath and my son Owen on the table with Gary Bennett. And he was with the guy that hosts the event. And we were sat opposite them, and I was thinking, they're not going to talk to us. They're just, they were talking amongst themselves. We were late getting in, and it was actually the opposite. Benno was brilliant. He couldn't wait to talk to me. He couldn't wait to talk to me, lad. He can't believe that he gets so much attention still, and that people still loved him so much, because he came from Chester as a free agent and turned into basically a club legend, really. So. So I've waffled there. Sorry, Randy.
No, that's good. That's good.
That was that was kind of, I would say, that was I understood what was going on. I had appreciation of what was happening in the league, and I was keen on what other results. But of course, in those days, like we didn't have internet and social media and things where everything's instant now, isn't it? We know what's going on. In those days, you didn't. Half time, you'd get some scores read out at the racecourse, so you'd know. But then you'd be going home to try it, and you'd have the radio on in the car or whatever, trying to see what's happened, what's going on. So very different times to what we are now.
Yeah, when you're looking at, let's say, the table or standings, and you're looking at either fighting relegation or going for promotion, how were you tracking? Are we falling in the table? Where the results? Do you have to wait 2 days or something for results?
Not quite. So you get obviously you got local radio stations, so they would sort of scores would be on there. We used to have something. The big thing that it's disappeared now. Only recently but a big thing that used to be on the radio was something called the classified football results. You have to Google this, right?
Okay.
So the BBC used to do this. You've heard of the BBC. So on their radio, some of their radio stations, they would basically read out the score of every professional game at about 6 o'clock. When they were all finished, it was called the classifieds. And that's what you were listening to. So like, what was going on? What's happened? Because you had no idea. Really what was going on. So yeah, that, and then local papers would print league tables.
Okay.
And also back in the day, Again, good one for you to Google. You'd have something called Shoot and Match, little magazines, little football magazines.
Okay.
They tell you a little bit about what was going on, depending on the level where you were, because they focused on the top level really. But obviously, at some point, Wrexham didn't get far away. Didn't get far away in our past, but yeah, though it's not like now where you get live dynamic tables that update as goals go in, don't they? So we know where we are.
Yeah.
As soon as the match is finished, we know where we are. So very different times.
Yeah, it's vastly different. But do you like the change of the technology and the instant of the information?
Yeah, I'm a technology fan. You say I've managed a couple of retailers that were technology based. So for me, if you use it right, it can make your life better. So yeah, having that, and all the stats and analysis that we have now, I really love that. I understand not everybody does, and if you're a new fan, it's daunting. Nothing compared to the likes of baseball, and I'm a big NFL fan. So you guys are really sort of stats orientated, and it's growing now. So I love it, but I understand why some people don't. But no, technology really helps with that. I think it's great.
Yeah, there's a beautiful blend of both of those things where if you're just all statistician and that's all you're looking at, maybe your brain is wired that way, but for most people you need a little bit of the emotion, a little bit of the story. And then the opposite way, if you're having, as everybody does, an argument with somebody else about something, then sometimes stats are the answer, to the argument not getting carried away or there being a resolution and it doesn't go on for 5 hours. Yeah.
Perfect way of putting it. See, I'm introvert and analytical. So that's how I am. So I think stats will tell you part of the story, but you shouldn't rely wholly on the stats, because sometimes your eyes and watching a game, you'll see something totally different. And if you speak to footballers, they will tell you about players who are very good at stat padding to make sure that when the time comes, whenever that weekly meeting is, and they're like, right, who's been running? What were how many completed passes have you done? They look good on that, but the reality is they know that as a teammate, they know exactly that they weren't what they need to be. But that's a boring story.
Yeah. No, but that's so apparent. So for people that watch this, there's some that are just brand new fans that are brand new to even sports, not alone just football, but sports in general. And you do have stat patters. Some of the ones from the U.S., if you followed NBA, would be Russell Westbrook, who would try to get what's called a triple-double, if you're familiar with that. It's stats in multiple categories that would get you above like 10 rebounds, 10 assists. And so he was notorious for needing like one more rebound or two or three more, and he'd purposefully go for a breakout, like him straight away, nobody between him and the rim, where you could just put the ball in easily, there's no challenge, and he would bounce it off the backboard to get an extra rebound, and just to get the triple-double. And his team could have lost every single one.
He messed that up,
Yeah. And in fact, a lot of the times he was part of a losing game, but he had a triple-double at the end of it. And you're like, but who are you playing for? Were you playing for the team, or were you just playing for yourself? And
I think we're... One of the things that we should give the current manager a lot of credit for is it would appear from the outside to have a genuinely good group with none of those types of players. Obviously, we're not there day to day, are we? But that's what it appears from the outside. He's a great team builder, and I don't think we've got. If we've got some, there's not many of them.
Well, you don't have to say anything bad about anybody on the team or anything like that, but who is somebody that's in football that would be known as a stat patter or that type of player?
So I think the best example, I'll give you a slightly different example. There's another variant on that. And we're having conversations in this country at the moment about a guy called Marcus Rashford. So we're going to the elite level now at Man United, right? So this guy last year was exceptional. Looked like a world beater, and then this season he's not at the races. He's being caught out drinking when he should be looking after his body, at home resting, ready for training. And I was listening to a podcast today where they were talking about this is common with people. They call it a contract year. So in the last year of their contract, they play out of this world. They get their payday, and then it's almost like they're not interested now because contractually you've got to pay me some money, lads, and it's normally millions, isn't it, for a Premier League player. So that's probably a better example, not related to Wrexham, and people might have heard. They'll have heard of Rashford, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's
similar thing.
It's a player that you can look up and easily, and there's going to be a lot of information on him too. When we're looking at obviously the history that you came through, you got to be on the journey and the struggle of Wrexham, seeing them come back to the Football League. Are there things that you're looking at now where there's people not only like me who are coming into this space, but other people who are new to the team and new to the market, that are you worried at all about any bit of the identity of the club or the culture or the city or anything with so much new people? Like, I mean, you don't have to call me out specifically. I'm just saying a lot of people.
No, and I speak to lots of people. One of my very good friends, if you'll allow me to mention him, is a very well-known online, is Michael Starkey. Who again, I met online. He stayed in that bed. You can see it. He stayed in that bed a couple of times. I've got lots. I've made friends from the new journey, should we call it, that we're on. Am I worried? I wouldn't necessarily say I'm worried. I tell you what worries me more is the reaction that. How should we say this? The reaction of some of the traditional fans to the newer fans, and I don't know. Maybe you have spoken before about any bad reactions you've had from fans, and some of the fans and other clubs. If you see it a lot from other clubs who are, being a bit cliche this, but the day trippers who are here taking our tickets, and you'll see that occasionally from Wrexham fans. You're conscious of it than me. Perhaps, or maybe you've had some of that. I'm not sure, but do you understand what I'm sort of saying?
Oh yeah. No,
I worries me more because I think what we should be doing is opening our arms and welcoming people, because we've been a club with nothing. Yeah, we've been a club with nothing. So what we should be doing is welcoming everybody. And that scares me more. Is are we arrogant and ignorant enough to not embrace that change and that what comes with it?
Yeah, I think I was talking to one of my friends, and I won't say their name just in case they don't want the information out there, but they had been inboxed by some people who, like, other fans will write us. I've been written by other fans, calling you plastic and etc., and that you shouldn't, like, you weren't there, you're only here because of Hollywood and the franchise and etc. But then I've had, and he also had, Wrexham fans, like other Wrexham fans, that have like said things before. And I mean, the only thing I can really allude to it is kind of feels like, the one white rapper or something like that, like there's everybody is, and if you're not Eminem, it's not easy for some people as it is for other people, because it's a...
Go on. Finish what you were going to say. I was eager.
Well, I might be saying what you're about to say, so I'll let you go with your point, because that might
also be your point will be much cleverer than mine. But what I was going to say really is, we have purposefully, Rob and Ryan have purposely tried to open up new markets. New markets, which means new people, right? So just what does it matter? It doesn't matter. If you're new to the sport, or you come at it because you were a Ryan Reynolds fan or a Rob McElhenney fan, which is what we've got in effect. So a lot of that, then you might not have known anything about football. We call it wet behind the ears. Like a baby. You don't know. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with that, is there? That doesn't mean that you're any different to me just because I've been here for however many years. It makes no difference, right? And that was one of the things that when I was really keen when I was doing the podcast to try and get. I had Michael Starkey on it. Another Texan comes on, the Wrexham Texan on Twitter. He comes on the podcast, and I like that because it opens my eyes up to what are new fans thinking. Now, Michael Starkey was not really a soccer fan. He was an NFL fan and an NFL coach. He was not an NFL, he was an American football coach. But Jamal, for instance, was a football fan. He's a Liverpool fan. But he just felt a connection with the Wrexham story, so that's how he got on board. Listen, it doesn't matter where we come from. None of us are entitled to be considered a better or worse fan than any of the others, my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. It's there's the question, I've asked it before in the past, but it's at what point then, if X person is not a real fan, at what point when? Clearly, what is these lines that are invisible, that are drawn in the sand, that on some days is welcome to have a great, wonderful fan base. Look how many we had 3 million people watching this game, and then rubbing that in another team's face too. Yeah. Where's the line in the sand where those 3 million people that we're watching are also valid, and their fandom is I don't know, outside of the word valid. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's it depends on when it suits an individual. So when they can turn around and sing a song saying "We're effing rich" on a Saturday afternoon, then that's all right, isn't it? But the flip side is a lot of them people will also be inboxing people saying you're not a real fan.
Yeah.
So it's when it suits them, isn't it? That makes sense. I'm not sure I've articulated that very well, but you get the idea. I think you get the idea.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll say personally for myself, I'm not really bothered by too many people. I don't really know people personally on a personal level, so they couldn't possibly know me on a personal level. So anything that they're saying, it's how would you even fact check what they're a person's opinion? So I don't really get too concerned with that. I think probably the thing that I have in my head that is the biggest question is if we continue to go up at the speed that we're going up, it's how do you retain? And this would be for any club out there. It's not just Wrexham in this instance. For any club, how do you maintain your culture and your identity of what that club was as it gets, I guess, more corporate or more like the other big clubs?
So I'm having to guess at that answer because I've never been involved in a club that's had to go through that transition. If you were one of the senior people, you would possibly be thinking about that. I think that the examples, these big Premier League clubs, some of these big Premier League clubs have kind of gone through that. I think about Manchester United, which is probably one of, if not the biggest club in the world of football. And I see a lot of comments there about day trippers going to Old Trafford because it's got so expensive the local person can't afford it. So I think I'm quite a realist. There is a time where it's tough, but it might become less of a thing for a local if they can't buy a season ticket and afford those football kits now are 50 quid. What are they going to be in 5 years' time? Are they going to be 100 quid? I've got an NFL jersey over here. Those are £110. For us, I don't know what they are in dollars, but they're mega money. It's mega. It will transition, and we will have some fall away. The football club will look at it as a business, I suspect, but they will carry on trying to engage with the community as much as they can. But I expect some change, but I'm not. I say I'm not. If I'd been involved in it before, maybe you'd have a better idea. If you'd seen it. But my gut feeling is that's what will happen. And is it right? Is it wrong? Just is what it is.
Yeah, and it's hard to rub that genie's crystal ball or whatever and see what is going to happen going forward. It seems like from my outsider standpoint that, and this is probably something that makes us fall in love more with the team and the plight and the story, is that the people seem to be embracing not only the owners, but the owners' will to want the community to still be a big part of the club no matter what going forward. And the documentary speaks to that, who they profile, and not who they profile in specifics, but the type of people that are profiled and the type of stories that are being told. And they don't seem like they're going to stop telling those stories anytime soon.
No, I think for me, that has been the key to success of the documentary. And again, sorry to reference that Mark Howard podcast, but you'll understand when you see it. They talk about that. He talks about that with Ryan, and Ryan says we purposefully People come for Rob. Remember the first season? It was people came for Rob and Ryan and left with Wrexham. That's what happened. You know, you come because it's Rob and Ryan. But Rob and Ryan are in very little. Certainly less. It feels like less in season 2. And I think they've been really savvy. They just plonk themselves in here and there. But it's not about them, is it? And then the crew on the ground do all the it sounds disrespectful. They do all the hard work. They find all the stories and all the people. And that's really what it's about, isn't it? That you know, most episodes, it's about somebody, an organisation, or an individual, and we sprinkle in some football. And they've got a good blend of what works. And clearly, season 1 resonated with people. 5 Emmys, however many, you know, I don't know how many people watched it. But obviously it got renewed for season 3, and I'm assuming they'll have got season 4. So, you know, they've got the magic stardust. They know what people want. Despite the fact that some people, when I listened to some sort of podcasts, sort of said, well, I'm not sure it's resonated as much this year. But I don't think that documentary is aimed at me as a fan in the UK here all the time, really. It's trying to tell the story to the wider world. And I think that's what the genius is of it. But that again, I'm not a team. I think they've been really clever with it.
Yeah, and I'm going to put the quote, and if I have any end to Rob and Ryan in the future, I'm going to let them know that you said the series was propaganda, and it was all a ploy, a plot, just to take over the world slowly.
Oh, that's worked. So, well, what can we say?
As missionary work goes, yeah, that show might be some of the best missionary work. You know, in a way of saying things, it's makes you fall in love with people, which is like the strongest connection you can do is when you make another person care for another person. It's hard for them not to root no matter what happens. If that person goes through joy and jubilation as well as misery and pain, you feel that so much more when you have a connection to them. And that connection being people that are inside of the town and real tangible people. I think that's the thing that gets mixed up with being online or being on Twitter or social media or something, is you often can disconnect from the realness of the identity of the person and, you know, connect to like a monitor or an avatar, which leaves a level that is disconnected, that you won't be fully invested or could easily disrespect somebody or treat somebody ill. But the documentary does such a good job of humanizing people, humanizing the story and the struggle, that it can't help but work as like a promotion tool of getting people converted into Wrexham fans. Because I don't know what your feed looks like, but I'll often see just finished welcome to Wrexham. I'm in love with this town, and I see that all the time.
So 2 things. One, I will often search the Wrexham hashtags just to see what's going on, what's being said. So I do see that, and I'll retweet those people, who are just now sort of catching up with it. It's great to see it and be reminded of the lovely story that's being told. But just with what you were saying about the individuals there, great example. Yeah, he's one of the. He's one of the most consistent people through the documentary, isn't he?
Yeah.
I remember during COVID, they had a really bad time. That pub had a really bad time. I think they even allude to that in season 1, but maybe I'm making it up. But you know, COVID was really tough for for those businesses. Yeah, they had no customers coming in. They couldn't sell anything. And then following the documentary, he decided to start selling some merch for the turf. I'm not sure if he still is, but at one point they were selling turf merch, so you could buy hoodies and stuff. And he was getting loads of stick online from people saying cashing in. And Wayne is one of the most genuine people, grounded, that you will ever meet. Right? He is salt of the earth. I messaged him one day. I said, listen, I've seen some of what's being written at you. I said, you know, what these people are not remembering is however many months ago you couldn't open your doors, and you know you were sort of fearing for your future. So don't worry about them. Just keep doing whatever you want. If you want to have turf merch, that's fine. And I think those are where this documentary's been good. Is they found a few that those people are just really genuine and grounded.
Yeah, and I think maybe what if people understand or don't understand in specific reality TV shows, there are people that are on reality TV shows that are paid. There are people that, whether it be your Love Islands or whatever, that get Screen Actor Guild credits as actors on those things. But then there are documentaries, which isn't classified as reality TV show as entertainment. And in documentaries, traditionally the actors, if you call them actors, they'll be credited as self. But the people that are inside there are not compensated. They're not paid. So everything that is made from the series, which either includes their image, their voice, their story, they don't see a profit from that. Other people see a profit from it. And so to even point a finger at somebody like Wayne and say, oh, now you're profiting off of it. There's been profit off of his image for 2 seasons now. And he doesn't get any of that. So I don't know what everybody's view is fair. But if he's giving his time and his energy to promote the club and being a good ambassador, it's like, well, at what point, where's his line in the sand where he deserves to be compensated for that too?
Honestly, we couldn't probably get a much better ambassador for Wrexham than Wayne. You know, as I said, he's been in it, he's grounded. You see, I'll go there sometimes to the butty van to get a butty for breakfast in the morning. There'll be people turning up, tradesmen. He'll be turning up, then I'll be asking him for selfie, because he'll go out, he'll be there, he'll be in the cold, crack of dawn, he'll be working, making sausage butties and stuff. People are asking him for selfies all day, and buses are turning up. And it's fine. It's no problem for him. No problem. Never moans about it. Just, you know, he'll take selfies with people all day. So, you know, that honestly, it's he's a great example and a great anchor point for the documentary.
Mm-hmm. Well, and with that, you have the negativity, but you also do have the positivity where there are opportunities or sponsorships that come about for people because of the visibility of either their business or their person. When we're looking at how the team has also helped out the players that come on with their entrepreneurship of either launching a clothing line or some other type of product, you would imagine that the overall impact would be a net positive towards not only the economy, but within individuals' lives for the most part. Are there anything where, as a local, that you've seen some of the people that come on or something, and you're like, I didn't know about even this person in my own community, that they were either going through X, Y, or Z or something, and it opened a door for you as a local?
I wouldn't say I didn't necessarily know about them, but perhaps we hadn't engaged with them in any way. So a great example. So I've got a couple. Am I allowed to plug people here?
Go for it.
So there's a brilliant artist in Wrexham called Largy's Art, at Largy's Art on Twitter. Right, she's done some amazing. She does a couple of things. She does some amazing work that she sells herself, and some of it she sells and puts some of the profit or some of that she's made, a little bit of money, back into the Miners Project, which obviously came up in season 2 of the documentary more. I don't think it was in season 1, but she's a big supporter of that. So I knew of her, but I'd never really engaged with her. Now I've got 2 pieces of her artwork in my front room. Yeah. So that's probably a great example of what you've said, and I'm sure the Miners Project is probably benefiting from the bits in season 2. And when I look at the reaction of people, because obviously they had some trouble, they had a bit of a break in there quite recently, and they had to appeal for some money. The response was brilliant. So you know, I think in small ways, lots of people would have known about them, but I had never used them, been there, engaged with them, and the documentary breaks the barrier and encourages you to engage with them people, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. And I'm part of a WhatsApp group that's mostly North Americans, and often whenever there's any type of fundraising or charity work, it gets thrown in there, and it's like, hey everybody, just so you know, this is going on, and you know, a good amount of people that can and afford to contribute do. And it's something where, as an outsider, you look at it and go, well, how can I help in the community? Is there any way? And when those opportunities come about, it actually feels pretty good to contribute to something that you feel like you're getting the better half of. You know, my relationship with Wrexham, I'm getting all the all the TV shows, all the player interviews, all the podcasts, all the artwork. I'm, seeing so much stuff that I get. And then it's like, but, in any relationship, it's like, well, what do I give back? And if you can be part of that community that you're not able to be on a day-to-day basis with, whether it's money or retweeting a post or something like that, it does feel good to be connected in some way, shape, or form. That is definitely like something that is positive. Something not so positive, unsmooth transition that you'll ever see. I just provided it to you. Yesterday's loss, obviously that wasn't so fun. How are you feeling right now about where we're at, season-wise, table-wise, etc.?
So, I'm relatively pleased. If you'd, remember we were stuck in the National League for 15 years, so we never thought we'd get out, right? So we've got out, and we've come halfway through the season. Our first season, we've come halfway through, and we were second, and obviously yesterday we've dropped to fourth, but we've got games in hand, etc. Yeah, so on one hand we step back and we go, listen, we're in a good spot. But I'm trying not to get too boring and drawn into technical conversations here. But what yesterday did was reaffirm that we've got some things we need to address. That away from home, we're not as strong as at home. So we've got some things that we need to address. And I think everybody's worried because we've got to such a good position where we could go up again, which would be unbelievable. But we could go up again, and the worry is that we fall away. So that's why everybody's so tetchy, because they're like, we don't want to lose 6 in a row now or something, yeah? And so it wasn't the best thing this morning at 9 o'clock when I had to get on a Salford podcast to talk about the game yesterday. Could have done without that. But give them their due. They did something which they did a number on us, yeah? They beat us at our own game. They were the better side. So all we can do is sit here and go, listen, I just hope that everybody takes on board that where we are in the grand scheme of things. Remember, we don't know what the expectations really are, so it's hard for us. What was Phil Parkinson asked to do? What was he told? This is the objective. Did they tell him it's promotion? Did they tell him he had to win the league? Did they just tell him just be in the top 7? We don't know, do we? So we're flying blind, making lots of assumptions. So yesterday was a bit of a downer. Rule the Blackburn game out. Forget that. That was, that's not fair to contemplate that. The thing that worries me is that it was a similar performance to Newport. It was basically, it was a mirror image, but it was probably a little bit worse yesterday. So that's the concern, is that there's a little pattern emerging, and we need to fix it. So, but grand scheme of things, again, if you just said we're going to be 4th or 2nd, however you want to look at it, because of the games in hand, we'd have snapped your hands off. Not to be, we'd have just been thinking, well, let's not get. I think the fairest thing to do is say, listen, year 1 in a new league, you need to acclimatise, and the second year in that new league, you can really have a crack. We shouldn't be thinking we're just going to go up and up and up and up. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. You'll get a bloody nose if you think that, because teams have been there and are schooled in the dark arts of how to win games. So they'll be better than us. But having an acclimatising year and then having a good crack, I think, is probably how we should more set our expectations as fans.
I absolutely enjoy the tactics of other teams referred as dark arts. It touches so many things, and I absolutely love it. What are some things maybe that, and I know you're not the manager, you're not the gaffer, but what are some things that maybe we could do that we haven't been doing? You'd mentioned before about Mullen being out of place, where he was falling back when he should have been more in an attacking role. You said that on 2 podcasts ago or something. Is that something that is hurting us that we need to address?
So I've had a few really good, positive conversations with people over the last, since yesterday, really, where we've kind of, bouncing ideas off people about what we can do. And everybody's got their own favourite players and their own favourite formations, and and the first thing I'll say is that there's more than one way to win. Right?
Okay.
So none of us are, and none of them are guaranteed. So some people would rather us play 2 up front. Some people want 1 up front. Some people want 4 at the back. Some people want but we kind of play 3 that can become a 5. But for argument's sake, we'll call it a 3. Some people want 3 at the back. Some people want. Maybe I've got people saying Mullins shouldn't be playing. There's all these. So there's more than one way to win. Everybody, you just have your preference. I think the thing that I would like to see, and because I'm taking, I found a fanzine article again the other day, which was from Phil Parkinson's. I think it was the day after or the day he got fired at Sunderland, and it kind of referenced the fact that the football wasn't entertaining. He was too rigid. He makes his substitutions too late. And in that case, in Sunderland, he'd fallen out with a couple of good players. And the thing that I'd heard that before about Phil Parkinson. And the thing that concerns me is he learning from those previous experiences? And when I read that yesterday, I saw it and I went, this just sounds like you could look at that. If you were glass half empty, you could look at that and go, that's now. If you were glass half full, you might go, well, the football isn't boring, or he doesn't make substitutes too late. So it depends on you as an individual, doesn't it? Yeah, we're all different, right? But for me, I was glass half empty as I was coming home last night, as you can imagine, and I saw that, and that resonated with me. So what I would like to see, and I think lots of people would like to see him budge on them. So make some changes earlier. Would it be the end of the world if we tried a different formation? Because everybody kind of knows how to set up against us now and how to play.
Yeah.
We are pretty much always 3-5. Just those that, would it hurt to play some football through our extremely good midfielders rather than kicking the ball over their head all the time? Mm-hmm. So little nuances that for me, but this is personal, Rad, isn't it? This is just what I would like. Yeah?
Yeah.
You might like something different. That's fine. There's more than one. Remember, there's more than one way to win. And by and large, he's been successful. But everybody's panicking now because we're in such a good position. We don't want a bad run to set in, and that's fine. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, is there? There's nothing wrong with the fact that you want to play a different formation to me. There's nothing wrong that I want to play a different formation than Phil. It doesn't matter what I want, because ultimately Phil Parkinson's the manager. He's going to do it his way, and he will live or die by that sword, won't he?
Yeah. Yeah, that for all of us new fans, that's a good breakdown and explanation for some of the inner workings, because a lot of the times, and I can only speak for myself as well, you'll hear something and it's almost presented as if it was, all or nothing, where, well, if Phil Parkinson doesn't do this, we're going to lose the league. And it's good to get some perspective of, well, yeah, of course, there's many of ways to win because we found different ways to lose. So obviously there's different ways to win.
I think that the thing I would say is, and he referenced this, again, I'm talking boring technical football here at the moment, Rand, so I'm sorry if your listeners are
you are fine. You are fine.
Not really bothered by it. Yesterday he referenced for the first time that he needed to basically look at himself and look at everything. He didn't pass the blame yesterday, which is what managers generally do. Somebody else's fault. He he looked as if he was contemplating it and thinking to himself, maybe I am going to have to review this again of what we're doing, certainly away from home. And what the one thing that we should all remember is Phil Parkinson is a great football manager who's had a very good career, but he is not the greatest football manager that's ever lived. So he is not exempt from criticism. He's been fired from multiple jobs because the team haven't been getting results. But he got us promoted. So obviously, he's earned the right to fail a little bit, but recover from that failure. Yeah, that'll be what Rob will be thinking. Rob will be thinking, well, okay, it's going rough now, but I need to see a path. I say Rob, because I think Rob is more engaged in the sporty, football-y side of it than Ryan. I think Ryan really is engaged by the marketing, the advertising, and but maybe I'm doing him a disservice there. Maybe he is a secret. He's got his tactics board and he's wondering what's going on. But so he deserves the chance to have some failure, but we need to see that we're at least trying some different things to get out of it. And remember, our failure is, we're talking about a few losses here, aren't we? We're not talking about 10 games on the bounce where we've lost. But obviously people are afraid that they don't want those couple of losses, few losses, and poor away performances to become permanent. And that can happen if you're not careful. So, sorry I bored you there, but you get the idea.
Not boring at all, because definitely a lot of us newer fans, these are the kind of things that it pays to hear an explanation, and more of a thorough explanation of what is going on, to kind of calm us down from when you hear panic in the streets, to know if you should respond to the panic in the streets, or if it's okay just to sit and wait for the dust to settle and then see where things go. So not boring at all.
Right, like Phil Parkinson is not going to get removed from his job this year. There is no chance. So even though Twitter, I spend a lot of time on Twitter. I know you're on there a bit. I don't know if you use any other platforms, but the meltdown happens after a loss, doesn't it? It's like, yeah, it's, but Rob and Ryan have got very good football people at the football club. So Sean Harvey, for instance, he'd have seen all this before. So, well, Rob might be marching around his house going, "Oh, this is terrible. This is like the end of the world." Sean will be going, "It's just normal. Just sit down, chill out, have a beer, whatever. Go in the gym, go and have a swim, whatever. Don't worry. Within a few games, we'll be back in it. And look at the other teams around us. They're drawing and losing. So it's no big team to play the way we want. We're all allowed to pick our own players that we want to. But ultimately, it doesn't matter, does it? Because it's Phil Parkinson and his coaching staff that pick up."
Yeah. Well, and it doesn't look like a bad place, but I do like the perspective of gaining some perspective in. It sometimes can feel like it's a bad place if we're so close to automatic promotion. And when we were fighting in the National League, that those 2 spots, only 1 spot being automatic. Yeah. Losing 1 spot, you're like, is this the end of the season? Is it now where we can't secure it and there being a lot more weight onto it? If we're looking at where we're at right now, how much season we have left, how do you feel as in either our hopes of gaining automatic promotion versus playoff? Because right now I think it would be pretty devastating to fall out of even playoff contention.
Get that. I'm going to set myself up for a fall here, because obviously we've got a home game on Saturday. Our home form will probably be enough to keep us in the top 3.
Okay.
And what we have to remember is we've been away to Stockport, Notts County, Mansfield, Dunbarrow twice, but they've got to come to us, haven't they? And at home we're a different animal. We've got a bit more confidence, and 12,000, 10 or 11,000 Wrexham fans every game to sort of will you on, suck the ball in, as we sort of say in the game. So I genuinely think we'll be fine, but we'll put ourselves under pressure if we don't sort those away performances out. Because right now, if you look at away performances in a league table, we're a mid-table side in away performance form. And we just need to get up a little bit. Just take the pressure off, so that those big games that come when we're at home aren't like they were in the National League, where it's must win, because you want the players to be able to play freely without pressure. That's what managers all spend all week doing. They want to put players in the best position to win, play freely without pressure. But if it comes down to one of the last games of the season and we've got to beat Stockport to stay in the top 7, for instance, that might be a different animal then, mightn't it?
Sure. Before we look at any score predictions, if you're so bold, what is one thing that a new fan could pay attention to during a game that might help them understand the game a little bit better if they just started one thing at a time?
That's really tough. It's easier to do if you're in the stadium than if you're watching on TV, because the TV, you're basically watching the ball all the time, aren't you? But actually, football is a lot about what happens off the ball, what other movement is happening, where are players. So what I would say is it's more of a general thing. But if you can see a game in person, watch what happens off the ball, not just on the ball. But that's really tough on TV. I try and do them as regular as I can, but it's time consuming. I do some breakdown videos of some of our games and just try and see what we can learn. What do I see? And when you see players running off the ball or distracting a defender or a spin move to create space, That's those are the things that you just don't notice them on TV because you can't always see them as it happens in real time. Football is about more than just kick and rush of a football. And if you can see a game, watch what happens off the ball, not just on the ball. But difficult because the TV doesn't really allow that.
Yeah, well, and that's definitely something that even when you're watching on TV, if you see some of the wider shots, you can pay attention. Perfect. And yeah, for sure. Well, looking at the Saturday game coming up next, Bradford, how do you feel about that matchup? Is this a must-win for us? What do we have going into this?
I don't think it's a must-win, but it's a home game, and we should win it. So that in itself brings some level of expectation. And also now we're in a place where we're relying on our home form currently because the away form is patchy. At best, it's patchy, yeah. So I think I'm positive about it. I think we're going to win the game. Do you want me prediction now, or do you want me to wait?
Go for it. Yeah.
What do you want me to do?
Go for it.
I'm more confident now because, and I'll tell you for why. Bradford lost a few players in the transfer window. So Carlisle took their really good goalkeeper, and I think although they got back a very good striker from Swindon on loan, who is a threat. But I think Wrexham will at home will have too much for Bradford, and I think we'll win by a goal. I'm going to go 2-1.
2-1. Okay.
I'm not confident in us keeping clean sheets at the moment, and we need to give Arthur. If you'll allow me to support Arthur, we need to give Arthur some backing because this is a young goalkeeper who yesterday was caught out a couple of times, especially the direct one from the corner. Given the size of him, he shouldn't be conceding that. But he'll know that. They'll be reviewing it. He'll know that. We forget the fact that he did 2 wonderful saves, maybe 3 wonderful saves in the game. And some of the things that were being shouted at him yesterday wasn't great. Yeah. So what we have to do, remember, is we've got this fantastically talented goalkeeper that we all want to keep, and he'll grow, he'll get better. His kicking, his distribution has got to get better. Don't dive in on him. Allow him to make mistakes without pressure, and that's how he'll grow. Yeah, he'll learn, but don't put him under pressure. Not fair. He's not an experienced enough player to be putting him under pressure. So sorry about the little segue there.
No, that's perfect.
But I think we'll win. But I don't think we'll. I'm not confident with clean sheets. And I think we'll win 2-1. I will say I'll tell you something that I noticed, and I've talked about this a lot. And I hope we change it at the weekend. But against Salford, we played 3 players at centre-back. So Tozer, Tunnicliffe and Hayden. All of whom in June, as far as we know, because we've not been told any different, all of which are in June will have no future with us. Their contracts all expire. So behind the scenes, that might be different. Maybe they've sorted them but not told us. I wouldn't be relying on 3 people who are thinking, well, I've got no future here, to be my 3 centre-backs. Now, maybe injury dictated that. Maybe there might be some other reasons. But I think I would be, I watched Max Cleworth yesterday in the warm-up. He looked fine. There was talk about why is Max not playing. He did the warm-up with all the players. And then when the main team did their warm-up, he went off and did some cool-down runs with Ollie Palmer and Luke Young. So he didn't look injured. So I think he was really unlucky yesterday. And that might not mean much to people. But if you think about it, I'm representing an organisation that is kind of telling me that they don't want me in the summer. Then, as a manager, am I vulnerable to that? Did those players played like it meant something to them, and that it just makes you think, doesn't it? So it wouldn't surprise me if we see Cleworth and O'Connell back. But I don't know whether you wanted to talk about players or not. But
that's absolutely fine.
I know, it hit me on the bus home, so I was a bit like, I'm not sure I'd have been that brave, but maybe they were injured and we didn't have a choice.
Those are you're preaching to the choir. This audience loves those. So all of everything that you're saying isn't boring to us. And then definitely I can speak for myself on it, but I think a lot of the audience that tunes into this, we're pretty positive, as in looking to what we can do to make improvements, but not just live in the past and look at the mistakes and abuse somebody. I know for myself that fear can be a motivator, but it can be a motivator for so long. And then at some point in time, you don't fear or you don't respect the person where the fear is being pronounced from. So you can abuse players and you can say, hey, do this, do that. What the fuck were you thinking? And that will work only so long, where that is not the best motivator that exists out there. And so definitely you're speaking to the choir when you're like talking about the good stuff that we could be doing.
That's really interesting. I'll tell you for why that resonated with me. So I'm a big NFL fan, okay? And what you guys would call the winningest coach of all time, which is Bill Belichick, left the Patriots this year. Yeah, so they decided we'd part ways. They had a terrible season. And he was kind of famous for this strict regimental environment that he created, and it was very cutthroat, is how I would describe. I mean, I wasn't there, but just what we read, it was very cutthroat. And it's interesting that in NFL, the power is definitely with the teams, whereas in football and soccer, it's with the players. In players now, you basically cannot get away with a lot of that, and it's certainly not for a long period of time. We are very much turning into we've got to mollycoddle these players now. We've got to nicey with them. You know, everything's brilliant. So that was really interesting that you said that, because that resonated. And I'm a Seattle Seahawks person, right? I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. And our head coach is kind of famous for being nicey, but the same message for year after year after year after year. And eventually people have heard it before, so you don't get the performance uplift that you need at key times. So yeah, I think your point is extremely valid. I've waffled on, but that was what I was basically trying to say.
Yeah, it's interesting, the difference between American sport and UK or European sport, or for the world for that matter, where we do have within our sports more of a militaristic standpoint when it comes to the coach. The manager is a dictator, and the people underneath are soldiers that need to follow and rank and file. And if you're the only ones that could come out of rank and file is when you are so good that even the coach goes, you make better decisions than I do on the run. So you have
look, so I'm going to stay in my job, aren't I? So
and so you have Bill Belichick winning this, but you have people like Tom Brady who are great quarterbacks, maybe the greatest of all time. This is anybody that's out there. I don't like the Patriots. I don't like Tom Brady, but I can put respect where it's due. And he can make decisions on the fly in a situation that are maybe quicker than Belichick can communicate to him, or his instincts are that refined that in the moment he is the expert. He is the end all, say all in making that decision. And coaches have to respect that. In football, European football, is that a thing where there are players that are so good that you just default to their expertise? You're messy. You do messy stuff. Go and do it.
Yeah. So it's. I mean, there's your perfect example, isn't it? Some of those elite players can. I'm sure Phil Parkinson would tell you that something happened in a game, not the way he would have wanted it, but somebody said, no, you go up for this set piece, I'll stay here. And Parky's thinking, well, in training we do it the other way, so what are we doing? Why are we doing that? I'm sure there's hundreds of examples, but I think largely I think I agree with what you're saying. Predominantly they're the exception, aren't they?
So we're looking at 2-1 for Saturday. Before we get off of here, everybody that tuned in today and stayed on for this long, thank you, appreciate you. We've got to know Matt just on the surface level. We'll need to get him to know him even more next time. He has let us know some wonderful things about himself, such as just go ahead and fry up some egg, throw it on some chips. If you don't want to be an adolescent with it, add a meat to it. Maybe put that on top of a piece of ham or something.
Cold ham, warm egg, and warm chips.
Ooh, there you go. And if you want to live life the right way, that is what you're going to do. Also, thanks for those deep dives beyond the surface level into kind of the why behind the why of something would happen within football, this is the right place for that. So don't ever feel bad about that. Hopefully we can have you come on again, explain some more football to us, which would be absolutely awesome. I'm not going to hold you to the 2-1 as in, that is the gospel in the Bible. But I'm going to piggyback off of you, and I'm going to go 2-1 because I loved your rationale for it. You could call me a coward, but I respect his wisdom, and so I'm going to go 2-1 with the prediction too.
And we'll take that, won't we? Just get a win, and we'll move on. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thanks so much for coming back on here, or coming on here for the first time. We'll throw in the links to your show, where they can find you on social media. You mentioned Twitter, X. Was there any other social medias where people can tune into you?
Yeah, I've got Facebook. We've got a Racecourse Rumble, small Facebook group, so people are welcome to join that. Which I curate just to try and keep some of the extremists out, should we say, that are very vocal. But predominantly, I'm a Twitter user, so I like that instant sort of impact of news, etc. So yeah, always on there where I post the links to the podcast and regular running updates. Unfortunately for everybody, bores you if you're not into running.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds good. Thanks, Matt, for teaching me and us how to Wrexham the Racecourse Ramble way. Everybody else, have a great day. Thanks for tuning in, and up the town.